All right. Well, this is going to be a great episode. It's truly long awaited for me because I have tried to get this guest on since the beginning of time. She is just a phenomenal person, as you heard in the introduction. And so I don't want to belabor the point. I want to get straight to it because we are going to have so much phenomenal content to discuss and really great things to take away. So, with that being said, why don't we just start with Kim? Share with us who
Uh,
Kim actually is. First of all, hello.
Hello. Yes. I absolutely love how formal this is. Just for the listeners, Allison and I have been friends for 52 years. So, and
Literally.
best friends. We've been best friends for 52 years. So, and yes, I am not famous as she tried to mention earlier. But here I am.
Yeah.
Kim, who is Kim? I'm from Flint, Michigan. I'm a writer. I'm a plant mom. I'm a donut connoisseur.
Mm.
Um, I am about all things holistic, super into crystals, super into watching the entire the Office series 57 times front. I mean, I go all the way to
Yeah.
season 9, like I'm dedicated. Um, so yeah, that's who I am.
I can confirm all those to be true.
Yeah.
So that's super awesome. I love Plant Mom because you truly are.
I'm getting like a new plant every week. So it's getting real foresty in this apartment.
I'm sure
But they
you're
all
feeling
alive.
fresh oxygen.
It is. It's like I'm really excited. It's keeping the air clean,
Yeah.
because the air in Los Angeles is full of dirt, and it like cleanses the air, keeps everything good in here.
Awesome. So clearly it's safe to say that you reside in LA currently, originally from Flint Town.
Yeah.
So like let's kind of step back to where, that space and season of growing up. Did you always know what you wanted to be? And if so, what did you want to be when you were growing up?
Um, yeah, I had a stupid dream at first when I was like young, and I'll tell you what it is why it's stupid. For some reason, when I was in the fourth grade, I thought I was gonna be a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. I don't know where it came
That's what's
from. I
up.
don't sports. I don't watch football, but I drew a picture of me as a Dallas Cowboy cheerleader. I don't know. Um, that didn't happen.
Okay.
Then after that, I wanted to be a part of a glam squad. Like I wanted to be like a hairstylist.
Okay.
So started doing French rolls and whatnot.
Of course. Of course.
As a young girl in Flint, Michigan, was doing French rolls on these mean streets on family
Staple food.
members and
Yeah.
whomever else. Then nine-ish. I guess I would say the kind of this is also I think a question, but I think it fits here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's kind of like a corny the cliche moment that a lot of people have. When I got on the honor roll, my mom wanted me to pick a movie, and it was between at that time the Five Heartbeats or Care Bears,
Wow.
and I was like, not I'm not interested in the Care Bears.
At all.
I'm 9. I'm grown now. I want to
Yes.
see something
Yep.
that matches who I am as a woman.
Correct. That reflects your
So,
life.
right. So she let me go see the Five Heartbeats. I had to close my she made me close my eyes during the sex scenes, and
It's like the first 3 minutes, but
right. It was yeah. It was like, what's going on? Like I know I can hear it.
missed the opening credit.
Um,
Right.
right. Like something's happening here. But yeah, I didn't know at that moment when I saw the movie that I wanted to be a writer. I just knew I wanted to tell stories. I just felt a certain way when I saw it, and I was like, oh, I want to do that. I didn't know what it was though, and so after that, I just started writing really bad poetry, and I continued to do that for years.
Yeah.
And then I wrote some short stories, and uh, yeah, so that was kind of like the the moment, I guess, if you
Mhm.
will.
Um, so that was the moment that you felt like you wanted to tell stories through writing, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, so once you knew that, what were some of the steps? I mean, obviously that was 9, you were in like
Yeah.
midlife
Yeah.
and you were like, okay, I want to be a writer. this is the steps I want to start putting in place? Is that what you wanted to major in your studies? How did that even
Yeah.
become more pronounced?
Yeah, I think for a lot of writers, depending on what it is that you write, when you look back on your childhood, you'll see that all the influences were always there. So for
Mhm.
me, I was a huge comedy girl. Like I watched um as a kid, I was watching stuff from the 60s and 70s. I used to watch the Munsters. I watched I Love Lucy, F Troop. I watched Mary Tyler Moore. I watched Dick Van Dyke. Anything that was on Nick at Night, I watched. And then I also used to collect. My family used to buy me the Far Side comics.
Yeah.
So the Far Side comics, the comedy is so ridiculous. Like
Right.
it's not for kids. It's a very like weird, oddball kind of comedy. So they started buying me stuff like that. And unknowingly, I started kind of like really honing my comedic bone. Like I really started to figure out like, oh, there's something here about comedy that I like. And
Mhm.
so I don't think I started knowingly seriously working on it probably until college.
Gotcha.
Um, Allison knows this because we went to the same place. We went to Michigan State. Michigan State doesn't have a film program, you know. They got about 2 film classes that you probably gonna be able to take. They have a screen. There might be more. I'm
I
not gonna
was
hate
gonna
on that. I
say,
don't
at
know.
this point,
I
right.
don't know. Spike Lee might be teaching at Michigan State right now. I don't know. When I was there,
Right.
it was just corn and 2 screenwriting classes.
Yeah.
So I took them, and it was just up to me to kind of on the figure out what screenwriting was and how to do it. I knew I wanted to work in TV and film
Mhm.
specifically. I wasn't as drawn to the internet. Like, so, because I, all throughout my life, I've gotten a lot of people like, well, why don't you have a web series? Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? I just wasn't as drawn to those mediums. I really knew that I wanted to see my work in another space, in TV or on and on the big screen. And also, I knew I probably wasn't going to be super consistent online. So that's something you have to know about yourself.
Yeah.
But I started reading some screenwriting books. Robert McKee has a really great book that a lot of screenwriters read called Story that kind of teaches you the basics and understanding the mechanics
Mhm.
of screenwriting. Um, and then really one of the major things that I did that I tell a lot of people to do is watch a lot of films and just pay attention to the structure.
Yeah.
So whenever you go to the movies, whenever you're watching things at home, like even my friends now, we don't necessarily need to, but we still do. We'll pause like and be like, okay, I think I'm at the, you know, what is it? We got to be in the second act, or we're at whatever, or that was late. I would have thought that would have come at, in 12 minutes, like, because we're weird now. But I think it's a good practice to pay attention to the mechanics of it. And for most people, a lot of screenwriters, we learn how to create our initial beats and craft a story through this book called Save the Cat. Save the Cat is the go-to for pretty much everybody. It has this beat sheet that almost any movie can kind of fall into. So
Mhm.
if you can understand the beats in the Save the Cat book, then you can start to wrap your mind around how to sit down and write a film.
Yeah. So it's something you said that I wanted to go back to, and it's also something I just know about you. So kind of starting out when you were first like really honing in on your study, you knew that's what you wanted to do. You had to create that space for you because it quote unquote didn't fully exist in this full blown curriculum way.
Yeah.
Um, One, I just wanted to stress the importance and the really ambition that you have to own your craft so much so that you create spaces for you to grow even when there's not one. So I thought that was awesome. But what I wanted to really pinpoint was when you were talking about you just weren't drawn to that digital internet space YouTube medium, and you knew that. And so, what I find interesting about that is because most of us, and a lot of us are taught as well, tend to follow the normal way let me do air quotes around normal, the normal way we see ourselves getting into an industry or growing in an industry or growing in a skill set. And of course, right now we look at other people who are like, oh yeah, it's easy to be like, why don't you do a web series? That's what everybody's doing. And that's how you get there. and knowing you personally, I know there were a lot of things that you did not go the traditional route on that everybody was like, why would you not do that? That's
Yeah.
clearly what you should be doing. Can you talk about why it was so important? I mean, obviously you don't have to go as deep or to the level of depth that you want, but why was it important in some of those examples to not do what everybody thought you should do, but remaining true to yourself, and how you think that bodes well for you today as an artist?
Yeah. You know, it was an interesting ride because I definitely was, you know, writing and doing, I mean, I'm still a writer, but writing and doing things, particularly in the time when having a web series or just doing any kind of short form content was the thing that you as a Black content creator
Yeah.
needed to do to get on. And so for me, it just, and here's the thing, I've worked in marketing. Like my day job that I still do, because it's easy and it pays the bills, is beauty copywriting. And so on that side, I've done tons of digital content because you can't
Right.
work in marketing and not do digital
Correct.
content. It makes no sense. So done tons over there. For my own personal work, I knew that there was a taste level. I knew that there was a particular budget, and I knew that there was just a particular way that I wanted certain things to be seen. And
Mhm.
I guess in my mind, I just rationalized that I was willing to wait um, until I got an opportunity to do it the way I wanted to.
Right.
And so, and I also have never been and I think people really have to understand where their talent and their skills lie. I've never been a person who has particularly loved writing a lot of short form content
Right.
outside of sketches. Like I love sketch comedy. I've written some sketch comedy, but outside of that, I haven't been a person that has had a lot of ideas that I felt made sense for a short form
Mhm.
series. So
Yeah.
it's my mind has always thought this doesn't fit here. Like
Yeah.
it won't make sense here. And so what you need to know about that is the road will probably be longer.
Mhm.
Like, so that's it. Like I have just now come into, like in 2020, the quite possibly the worst year on earth, have just finally come into the things that I wanted to do. But in just now coming into doing the things that I wanted to do, um, like I've sold a show, and that for where I was, I mean, I think it's mine.
Yeah. I'm so proud. Continue.
For where I was and where I am in terms of me going into a network and actually realistically saying buy this show
Right.
and make me an EP makes no sense.
Executive
No
producer.
one
Yeah.
realistically, no one should have bought the show.
Mhm.
No one should have taken me seriously, and I should have been laughed out of these rooms. But the payoff, the seeds that were sown a long, long time ago, where there was like a quiet time, they have paid off.
Yeah.
So you know, and sometimes it's just about you saying, all right, I'm not gonna, maybe I won't get to do what it is that I want to do until 5 years from now because I don't necessarily want to do it this particular way. Do I think I could have had some, you know, success and or I guess if you want to call it fame online? Sure, I think I could have done that. I just didn't want to.
Yeah.
Just wasn't
Yeah.
it wasn't something that I was interested in doing. And you should do what you're interested in doing despite what people are telling you you need to do. I had a lot of people tell me if you don't do anything online, you're never going to do what it is that you want to do. And
Mhm.
I just was like, nah. Like you don't get to tell
That's
me
my
that.
journey. Right.
Right. Like you don't get to tell me that. You also have to determine what type of writer you are. I'm the type of writer that likes to incubate and be in my space and figure out what it is, what this story is, and really, really hone it. And then, you know, work with people and figure out how we're going to do what it is that we're going to do. I was never really a person I'm the difference is like short form content exists, and I'm not bashing short form content in any
Sure.
way. I want to make
Sure.
sure people understand that. But you have to, in your mind, you have to kind of be a person that understands all things current and things that are going to fit for this exact moment now to be able to be successful with the short form content.
Mhm.
For me, my mind, I have been unknowingly training myself since I was a kid to think about stories that were timeless, stories that weren't necessarily impacted by what was going on around me culturally at the time, stories that you could watch over and over again, because those are the stories that I like.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like I went with what drives me now, that
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I would have the ability to be able to do.
Yeah. So I'm gonna dig a little bit deeper there because honestly, in this season where we live in a space where everything has to happen now, and when we don't think it happens now, we think we're failing.
Yeah.
It seems just very natural to go the way that is the majority. I personally want to take the time, being someone who knows you, to say that I really admire, one of the things I really admire about you is that you have truly stuck it out. I mean, there there are times when yes, there could have been an easier road as far as developing content that's quote unquote hot, that is a easy sell, you know, may not be sexy, but it's just an easy sell. And you were like, no, that's not me. That's not what I write. And we know that in certain industries, especially for creatives, that you're fed this narrative that if you don't write what people tell you to write, the people who quote unquote make the decisions, you won't be successful. And so I applaud you for really just knowing who you are and sticking to it. You've had a lot of opportunities that people would have scratched and pleaded for, and you still were able to walk away from some of them because you were like, this just isn't me. And that's really hard in the industry, like film writing, or almost any industry where you feel like you're reaching this point of success and then walking away and being like, this doesn't serve me anymore. It doesn't serve my purpose. It doesn't serve what I want to do. And I don't want to be miserable just to say I quote unquote have XYZ. So kudos to you on that. And then I also need to say how I have witnessed, I mean, you just talked about getting pitching a show and that working out well now. But we all know that we have this awkward way of thinking that the minute we see people in the light, they is the minute they started working on their passion and they just got it. They don't see the years behind it, the
I'm like,
years behind it. And so seeing you come out in this, as you said, coming out of 2020, coming into this space where like things are just blowing up, it's just great to witness because you truly stuck by it. And I was listening to a podcast recently about, it could have been about Simon Cowell, to be completely honest, but he was just talking about how like everybody wants the microwave success, and he was like, it shouldn't it shouldn't be fast. It shouldn't be
no,
fast. And
no,
we have to realize, I think, and I'm learning this too, like one of the most powerful tools we have is our ability to wait. Like
yeah,
it's a powerful tool. It's the most annoying and aggravating resource that we have, or skill set that we have internally. But
yeah,
as we sharpen that to be like, waiting is a gift, like
yeah.
actively waiting, because waiting,
And really, let me just say something about that too, because a
Mhm.
lot of time you don't realize that the waiting is not necessarily waiting when you're in the moment of doing it. So like
Mhm.
I'll even just say, like, for me, like, um I mean, I just mentioned, like, I sold the show. I'll have an announcement about that when I have it. But and then I'm currently in the writers room for this animated show on Netflix. And it's the all the other stuff, before getting here,
Mhm.
it was like, like it sucks, because it feels like, oh my God, I'm like a loser. I'm like not I'm like not really doing anything. Or there's a combination, depending on who you are, of two things. One, you're working on a lot of stuff, and you're getting a lot of no's. But then two, you have certain things that are being presented to you, and you're either saying yes or no to that.
Mhm.
And and that quote is absolutely correct when they say, like, it's the no's that make your career. Because
Yeah.
I have said no to probably about 85% of the things that have been presented to me to write,
Right.
which made no sense, Cause I've been legit you know what I'm saying? Like I've been out here like,
Man, listen.
and let me not say because that's probably like, it's other people that's actually po. Like for me, I've always had like, I've always been a freelance writer. So I've always had income coming in,
Mhm.
but in LA, you got to make $6 million to make $100,000. So it's
Right.
like, you know, it's like live
Right.
$100,000 lifestyle. So it's like, oh my God, the money I'm coming in is like going straight to Whole Foods. Oh my God. So you know, it's hard to be I'm bougie po, you know.
Mhm,
Um,
mhm.
I'm at the hot bar at Whole Foods, but I'm not buying groceries. You know, it's like
Gotcha.
there's a clear divide. There's a clear divide in terms of what it is that I'm doing with
Right, right.
my pennies. But I think it's, you really have to think about all the things, and like I had this really crazy culminating moment where I was interviewing with a showrunner for this show on Amazon,
Mhm,
and she was concerned because I hadn't been, this was a while back, and she was concerned because I hadn't been in a room before.
mhm.
And she didn't like shade me or anything, but she just kind of was like, you know, a lot of times when you're a screenwriter, you know, because I'm a classically trained screenwriter, and then I started writing TV. Always had a desire to write TV, but didn't start physically writing TV maybe until about, I'll say like five, maybe 6 years ago.
Yeah.
And so she was like, you know, it's always a concern, you know, when you have screenwriters in the room, sometimes they don't know exactly how to take the note or understand that, you know, you may write your draft and then the room is going to rewrite that draft for you. And so it was like the first moment that a lot of things in my past like clicked for me. And I said, well, let me just explain why it's fine. I
Mhm.
said, I have an extensive editorial background. And I said, editorial works in a very similar, probably more antagonistic fashion than
Right.
being in a writer's room. I was like, editors, I said, and I come from the world of editing before blogging, when editors would rip your soul to shreds. You would send in this art, you'd have to, first of all, you have to pitch a number of things to even get
Right.
approval. Then once you actually did write something, they take a red pen to it. Then when you actually fix whatever that is, a copy editor rewrites you again. So you have to go through all that to understand like this is the way this thing works, and it's fine. The soul of what I wanted to write is still intact. And I said, so um I said that's a piece of you know my past that would work for me as well. I said, and then in 2018 I was in the Universal Writing Program, which is a screenwriting program at the studio, and I said, and that program actually works as a screenwriter's writing room. So we broke each other's stories, we gave each other notes, we wrote in the same room together, we shared everything. I said, so whereas you may look at it as I don't have traditional writer's room experience, I said there are a lot of trades and skills that people who don't work in Hollywood or yet can come into and understand how to work in a collaborative space. You
Mhm.
know, because sometimes Hollywood exists in a bubble and they think nobody knows how to do anything outside of this. And it's like, nah, bro, like, you know,
No.
yeah. And so I just say that to say, the waiting time that you feel like you're in purgatory is not for naught. There's a lot of skills that you're gonna take from that time into now. Like for me, having worked in editorial all those years makes it very easy for me to concretely explain what it is that I'm trying to do in my story to people.
Mhm, mhm.
Like it makes it, I know how to edit things down to the smallest bit of information where
Right.
if I don't have a lot of time to give it to you. And that comes from working in editorial. Had I not worked in editorial, I might not have, you know, like had that. Or like I'm desensitized now sometimes to certain types of notes. Not all the time, because you're always gonna be like, but I thought it was perfect. But you know, but I'm desensitized to a certain degree because of, you know, my past. So don't, for people who are like, oh my God, I'm in purgatory. It's like, no, you just have to take a look at what skills you're learning in this moment
Yeah. That's
and
great.
then use them.
Yeah. I always say one of my phrases, preparation time is never lost. And it's just true. Like hindsight is always the clearest. And so now when you first of all, it is knowing that waiting is an active verb. It's not like you're
Right.
twiddling thumbs. It's just not, you may not be where you saw yourself.
Yeah.
Um, but then when you look back, you're like, God, all that makes sense. Like the good and the very, very bad. I'm like, that now I needed to stretch in those bad moments.
Yeah.
Um, but being, you know, kind of going in that vein and being super transparent, was there ever a time even in the waiting, knowing where we are now, and we've all been there, but for you specifically, was there a time when you're like, this is just a little too much. Like, I don't even know if I should be writing anymore or if I want to do it because it's
Yeah.
just heavy.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that everybody has that.
Yeah.
But what I will say is there's I always say this, like whenever now I don't have to, this doesn't happen as much because so many things are happening. So it's like, okay, I guess I've gotten out of the place where I need that. But when I was, there would be moments where I would just be like, this is dumb, this is stupid. And I always joke, I'm gonna become a potato farmer in Idaho and I'm done. Like I'm done. This is stupid.
That agricultural
I don't
stuff
even know
never
how to farm
they worked
potatoes,
out.
but I'm gonna figure it out.
Right, right.
So, but every single time I would be in that place, something would happen, and I would get a text, I would get an email, or I would get some sort of sign. It was like really, really kind of like God designed because it literally happened every single time. And that has not happened in any other areas of my life. Like when I was like, I'm done, it would be, I will wait for it and be like, no, I guess I'm done. And nothing happened. Nobody, I didn't get nothing. Nobody said nothing.
Right.
I'm actually gonna quit. But with my career, like writing, literally every single time something would happen that it was almost like if I wanted to give up, I've just really never had the opportunity. Like nothing would let me. Like if when
Yeah.
I wanted to actually physically try to give up. In which I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the person who, I do have some friends who are like, yeah, that was the year that I packed it up and I left, and that was the year that I did this and da, da, da. I haven't done that.
Yeah.
I've just kind of been like, this has to work, or I'm going to become a serial killer. Like I don't, it's like, it's this, or people are gonna have to start dying. I don't know. It's like a
Right.
really intense, like there's no
Either
plan
or.
B.
Right.
Right. So I will say that just to be there. But yeah, I mean, when you have those things that come your way that make you want to quit, um, I don't know. I don't know that there is. I guess you just, yeah, yes, you do have to go back to remembering. Everybody says, I got to remember like why you're doing it. Yeah, you do. You got to remember why you're doing it. But you also have to, I think about how are you going to feel in like 10 or 20 years if you know you gave up today.
Yeah, that's
And
good.
for me, it's just not, it wouldn't sit well. I don't think I would ever be like satisfied with anything else, knowing that I didn't try to do this to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's really what the real thing is are you going to be okay in 15, 20 years, or are you going to have like a nervous breakdown? So
Yeah.
you might as well have a nervous breakdown today
Yeah.
and go to a cafe and write later. I've cried in so many Starbucks bathrooms. You just got to work it out. So
No, that's really, really good because to your point, like if you those hard moments that you have them now and persevere through them. Because
yeah,
if you stop and
yeah,
look back and you feel like you quote unquote wasted years or didn't produce what you wanted, that pain is even more severe. And I think that's a good thing for people to remember. On top of taking the time to learn what it is that you love.
yeah,
You know what I'm saying? Because I think especially, you have this like super bright-eyed idea in high school and college, and there's some that are fortunate enough to like learn it and walk in it immediately from
yeah,
18 on. And then there's some of us who just have to fine tune it and sharpen it along the way. But it's worth the work in doing because I feel like it's a disciplined act to
yeah,
further discover yourself and figure out what it is that you want to do. What is your purpose and how does that fit in your profession? Versus just getting lost in the day to day and
yeah,
feeling like you're not achieving that, because that's when I feel like people stop because they don't know what that is, that they're like,
yeah,
I don't, looking forward, if I look back and wasn't doing what, so it's worth that time to figure that out.
yeah,
So, and I appreciate you sharing that, because one thing I always say is that sometimes when you work hard, inevitably you will get to a place that you want to be because you're
yeah,
working hard, and that hard work will be honored. But I think sometimes it's so easy to forget once all these great things start happening, what those low moments felt like, what those valleys felt like, because
Yeah.
you're there and just it's
Well, they
really,
just become new moments. You know, it's new low moments. Like now, for instance, I'm writing, you know, and you know this, all the projects that I have going right now are all very intimate and very personal. And I think that would be the one thing I would tell somebody, like, when you decide, when you sit down, and I say it all the time, like, you know, write your truth, like, let your writing be a therapy. And it's like, yeah, but like, well, yes, so do that,
right.
but just know that whenever you come back to write that thing, you got to reface it, and that can be tough. So,
Yeah.
yes, that, so now I'm in the new phase of, oh, I'm not fighting. Yeah, I'm still fighting in a lot of areas to quote unquote break into the industry. Once you break in, if you will, once you start getting a couple of wins, that people can, you know, see, in which I'm in that place of right on the precipice of someone saying, oh yes, we would like to consider her for this and this. So, you know, I'm in a what I would consider to be a good place. But once you get on the other side, you it just becomes more creative obstacles,
Yeah.
become more personal obstacles, that then you have to realign and figure out what it is. So the obstacles never end.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they never, ever, ever, ever stop. They just shift,
Yeah.
and they morph into new stuff.
Yeah. And I think the hope is that with each obstacle you face, you get stronger and stronger for the next set.
Hopefully.
Because if you can't, if to your point, if you are the person that's like, I don't do it anymore, I'm just done.
Yeah.
And so
And you
ask,
know, I see how people can get there and
for
then be like,
sure,
this is stupid, I don't
easily.
want to do this anymore. Like, I get it. I understand how you can be like, yeah, yeah, no. Like I
Listen,
still understand it.
for sure.
So I don't know. We'll see what happens when I get to that next
Yeah.
place. If I start potato farming, I don't know.
Yeah. And that would be, I'm sure you would take that by the horns. So okay, so you talked about, you know, what it is and how your outlook and what it is that keeps you going. At this juncture, knowing that you are right on the frontier of getting to this next level, when you look back, what are some of your like top 2 to 3 accomplishments that you're like, this may be far behind, but I am so proud of this?
Oh man. I don't I don't think I've hit like my greatest accomplishment. I don't know if
Sure.
you can do that
Sure.
until you like, I don't know. But looking back, I would say probably my one of my greatest accomplishments, I would say, particularly creatively, has been finding my voice, because
Mhm.
it's really difficult.
Yeah.
Is really difficult just as a writer in general to figure out what is your thing and how is it that you have decided to write.
Hmm.
Um, and finding the courage to say the things that you want to say in your work. So that's the first level. Then when you add the level of just being Black, that's a whole additional thing.
Yeah.
All right, so I kind of figured out my writing voice, but like, what do I even want to say something about Blackness? Do I feel like that's something that's important to me? Um, do I how do I incorporate that in a
Mhm.
real way that doesn't feel like topical Blackness?
Right.
Then the third layer is, okay, well, I'm Black, but I'm also a woman. So that's a real specific type of content as well that really,
Right.
I always say, people don't know how to write Black women. It's really difficult. Like when you really watch something, you really understand, like the Black woman feels
Mhm.
close to you, somebody did a good job, because not a lot of times people, even sometimes Black women, have a hard time writing Black women because we just don't have, we're far more multifaceted than they make us in TV and film.
Correct.
And so I would venture to say my greatest accomplishment is that I have figured out my voice as a Black woman who
Mhm.
sometimes doesn't lend herself toward the typical Black female isms.
Right.
But
Right.
being okay with that, me being okay with saying, nah, me and my friends don't necessarily do that.
Right.
And that's okay for me to not write that just because I happen to be Black and female and that's what you see in pop culture, but that doesn't fit me and my voice. So I say that's probably one of my best greatest accomplishments because it's so hard. And then I think the other one is being really unapologetic when I talk to executives.
Yeah.
Um, I've always had like a little bit of candor with them, but now I just, in my meetings, I'm just really like, this is what it is. And this is how
Yep.
I want to do it. And this is how, I'm going to say it. And, this is how I feel about it, which it feels very much like, when you see these panels and you see these people, the Lenas, the Isas, the whomevers of the world, these people who are making all this fantastic, wonderful content, the Avas, the Casey Lemons, because I can't leave her out because I love her. But it seems like, oh well, no, they do this on the regular. It's hard. It's
Yep.
hard to go in as a Black woman in these rooms because they still question you about whether or not you have the right to write a story about Black womanhood, and then you looking back at them like, but I'm a Black woman.
Correct.
Like I don't understand why,
Yeah,
but
obviously.
it happens all the time. It happens in rooms. It happens, when you're pitching a story. We are still the group that people feel like, well, let me put that story in a white man's hands because I feel like he might be able to tell your story better, which is absurd. So yeah, there's still a lot of pitfalls that you encounter there. So I would venture to say that I one of my accomplishments was overcoming any kind of fear of what would happen if I said exactly what I wanted to say, how I wanted to say it, and I was very forthright about it, particularly when I'm talking to white people, because that's when you can sometimes feel like, oh my God, can I really say this? And it's like, yeah, you can.
You
So
must.
yeah, you have to, like, you really just have to get over it and be like, no, I mean, like even small things like, no, this person has a Black husband. Like, well, what about, well, no, because they got a Black husband.
Right.
Like, and it's just like, or whatever it is that you're feeling in the moment, you have to say that. I'm at a project I'm working on now. We've had to have the conversation about why the actress has to have a darker skin tone. It's a conversation we physically have to have, where
Absolutely.
we have to literally explain why that makes sense for the character, why it's tied to the character's identity, and why we have to look for an actual physical person who has this skin. It's crazy. Like, you would think you wouldn't have to have these conversations, but you do. So I would say those are some of my, like, my accomplishments.
Yeah. I mean, obviously the best is yet to come, but I think that's amazing. That is a place that a lot of people don't get, especially in your industry, because like I said, it's the road less traveled
Yeah.
by far. And it's not easy. That's not even to knock anyone who's ever put an effort out there. It's hard. There's a lot against you more than it may feel that there are for you. But I definitely applaud that. Um, I am not a person who lives in spaces of regret. I feel like things
Yeah.
happen to help lay a brick for the next step.
Yeah.
But I do know that, again, hindsight, there are some things that, like, wisdom that I'm like, I probably should have put that into, application had I known that. And like for you, if you could look back, what would you want your younger self to have taken heed to? And it's okay, because I say this to say, like, I love hate this question because I think it's important to address, like, you know what, if I did do this, I could have maybe avoided that. That's more so for the listener who is in that space of exploration now, but
Yeah.
knowing too that who you are brought you to where you are. So it's not a regret question more than it is
Yeah.
a, like, for someone who is in that stage of exploration, is this what I want to do? What would be that one thing that you would have told yourself to, like, hey, for real, listen to this part. Listen.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna sound so masochistic, and I don't want it to sound like that, but um, I firmly believe and know from personal experience, whatever the thing is, as just a human being
Mm-hmm.
that is breaking you and causing you an immense source of pain, is going to help you carve a very specific voice,
Mm.
because it's that thing that changes your lens on and shapes your lens on the world and how you relate to people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I feel like a lot of people are, when you're growing up and there's this comment that's always like, this quote that's always like, pain creates a really hilarious comedic writer. And it's true, like, because you learn how to use your humor to survive, and so I would definitely say, like, you probably have, if you're a really unique, interesting writer, you probably have some weird stuff going on in your regular life. Just to be honest, there's probably something there that you're like, oh my God, this thing is a little off, or this tragic thing happened to me, or this whatever. But I want people to understand that it's those things that help shape the way you will be able to write characters, the way you relate to people, your level of empathy, and the way that you would look at a scene in a totally different way than somebody else would. So it's terrible and it's horrible. And I hope that a lot of people get over the painful things that are like, burdening them in their lives, but also just know that it helped give you a more specific perspective than maybe somebody else who the grass has always been green, on their side. And so I read a lot of comedian memoirs, and all the comedian memoirs I read, they always had something stupid going on with them in childhood. Some of it ranges from really, really painful and terrible to like, I was a bedwetter till I was 16. Like, it's like it's the whole gamut.
Yeah.
But they talk about that one thing really shaping their voice and how they learned to communicate with people, and how they learned how to, tell jokes out of this dark place or whatever it is. So that would really be one thing I would tell people, is like, whatever that thing is, just use it. Like, use it and understand that it's probably fueling your process. You're probably a more interesting person than you think, on the page, is what I would tell somebody.
That that's my favorite. It is. Your pain serves a purpose, and no one wants to hear that, especially when you're younger. No, not even younger. No one wants to hear that, because it's not fun when it's happening. But you're absolutely correct. Like, it is playing such a vital role in creating who you are.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. I have two more things I want to tap into before we conclude the episode, but really just hitting it quick, because I know that, especially when it comes, especially, you know what, especially when it comes to what you get to do on a daily basis, and it's just super glamorous, and oh, I'm pitching a show, and oh, I've worked with this person and that person, and like, what would you share with someone at any age who is wanting to get into writing and wants to get into film? It's clearly a desired thing to just say easily. But that would be helpful, and letting them understand the difference between the glamour and the grit of what you do.
Yeah, I mean, man, writing is not glamorous. I don't know why anybody thinks that. It's not. It's just you, especially. And here's the thing: what I will say, as a screenwriter, if you don't have a partner, that's a lot of solitude. It's just you by yourself. Working on that thing. Expect to be alone. It can be a very lonely process, outside of when you're obviously collaborating or taking notes from producers or whomever it is that you're working with. The process of writing it's not glamorous. It's not at all. Now, the other, on the other side, working in TV, being in a room, that can be fun. I'm personally in a great room with a lot of, I'm on a comedy. I'm in a room with hilarious, ridiculous people. The show is absurd. So we have full, the ability to toss out any absurd idea that comes across our minds. We can do that. Every room's not like that. TV rooms typically, writing rooms typically tend to be very political, and sometimes they're not great space. Not even sometimes, a lot of times they're not great spaces for BIPOC people. They can be very not all right. I lucked out with a fantastic Black showrunner and good people in my room. So what I will say is, if you're wanting to become a TV writer, and you you're looking at it as, I really want to be able to work with people on a daily basis. I'm very collaborative. I want to get in a place and create this, cool, wonderful thing. TV writing definitely has those perks, in terms of, it's hard work. We work all day,
Yeah.
and we write all day as well. So it's like, it's difficult, and you have to be, you're pitching all day in a room. So you have to be very sharp. You have to make sure that you're very alert. You got to know what's going on. So yeah, there's a lot of other things. But what I will say is, I feel like, if you're wanting a little bit more of a fun process, TV writing might be a better route for you. Screenwriting, is a much lonelier road. I love being alone. I love just the, going through the pages meticulously, and like just, obsessing over every word and every piece of dialogue. If you love that, if you are a weirdo who's just really, really, really into rewriting a scene 70 times, then screenwriting might be your jam,
Right.
Just know that in both journeys, the writer, you would think, is not like this, but the writer is the least respected in Hollywood, even though Hollywood does come to a halt when we stop working. So I would say that that's not the glamorous moment. Now, what is glamorous is the money. Once you start making money, the money is glamorous. And we do tend to make more money than most professions. So yeah, but you have to understand that it's going to take you 100 years to make the money. For a lot of people, you don't make the money immediately. It's going to take you a while to get to the money. But what I would say is, by no means, I always tell people, you need to be crazy if you're going to decide to try to work in Hollywood, because it's ridiculously difficult. It's nothing that you should just do on a whim. You know what I mean? It's not like
a hobby.
I'm going to try candle making. You should not treat candle making like I'm trying to go make it in Hollywood. They're different. Trying to make it in Hollywood is not a hobby. Like, you actually have to really be ready to deal with every aspect. And there's a lot of things that, particularly as a Black person, you don't even know you got to deal with till you dealing with it. And then you're like, oh shit, I didn't know I was gonna be dealing with that. Okay. And then you're there. And so I would say, if you wake up and you just can't imagine yourself doing anything else, like if you're just like, I absolutely have to, I'm not gonna do the sister act. I was about to do it. I'm not gonna do it.
You supposed to be a writer, girl.
You're supposed to be a writer, girl. And so, but really, like, if you literally are like craving it, you're like, I just have a story to tell, and this is the way that I want to tell it. And I want to be a person that's up late at night writing, or I'm a person that's willing to put in the 12 to 14 hours a day to write. And I'll like it. Cause that's the other thing, is like, I write for, hours, I like it. It's not something that I sit down and I'm like, oh God, no. Like, some days I'm like, I'm tired. I just would rather nap today, or watch Parks and Rec. But and sometimes I do nap and watch Parks and Rec, and then I write after that or before. But if you like it and it's something that actually fulfills you, then do it. But don't say, oh, I just feel like, because then that's the other thing, is sometimes people think that they're writers, and really you need to be a producer because you don't want to write. Maybe you have a skill set in guiding stories, and you really like pulling the pieces together. You want to know directors, you want to know costume designers, you want to be the person that pulls together all the creative pieces of the puzzle, including the money. You're very good at that. You're very good at persuading people. You're very good at conflict de-escalation. Like, maybe that's you. You might need to be a producer, But if you are a little bit of an inward, antisocial, but extrovert when you need to be, and you like to sit and really, really, really think about this particular genre and, the tropes within it, then maybe you're a writer, or maybe you're a director. Like, I think that's the thing is, everybody thinks that they're a writer, and writing is very hard. Writing is not anything that anybody can sit down at a desk and do. You can, but you probably can't do it well, if I'm just going to be completely honest. So that's the thing I would say is, figure out specifically where your skill set lies and whether or not it's maybe you want to be a writer, but maybe you're better suited for something else. There are so many things in Hollywood that people can do, and all these jobs that will still have you submerged in a story that people don't realize. They just think, oh, I want to do this. And
Right.
it's just like, well, are you willing to write 17 drafts? Because if you are, then okay. But if you're like, my God, 17 drafts, then maybe that's not for you.
Right. Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I
Oh,
would.
that's great. I think also that ties back to what you were saying earlier about put in the work to figure out what it is you want to do. Like, don't
Yeah,
just see this person and say, I want to do exactly that. What is it that you love? And from there, find the job or profession or passion that best fits that.
yeah, yeah,
So that's awesome. So listen, this season is really about sharing with people how they've come out of different valleys. And to your point, like they're inevitable. It's going to happen multiple times, but there has to be a mindset that gets you out. And so for the last question that I want my guests to answer is, if you had to pick a theme song that describes your ambition for making it through, or maybe you listen to it when times get rough, or just it reminds you of a time when you were like, so glad I made out of that, what
yeah.
would your theme song be?
I've always had the same theme song since I was. It's never changed. It's always been the same.
That's great.
Um, it's my theme song's always been Prince, "Baby I'm a Star," and not
Yes.
because I'm like famous or anything, but the
Yeah.
lyrics fit. Like he says, "I ain't got no money, but I'm rich on personality," and so
Yeah.
that's been my life
Right. Right.
for a long time. And it's just this upbeat song. It also was the first um theme of my very first dance recital, which
Nice.
also was like a moment where I was like, I want to do something entertainment. It ain't dancing, clearly, but I want to do something because I'm not that good at this. But I'm like, I want to do something that has something to
Right.
do with this. And Prince is just like
Listen,
everything
Prince.
to me. So
Yeah.
I'm always about all things Prince.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. Little known fact, Kim was one of the two people that I got to see Prince in concert with. So grateful that that was able to happen, because that's a legendary moment
Oh my
for
God,
us.
yeah, that was so good. I
So
mean,
good.
I'm
Just
just never gonna forget it.
all
When
in
he ripped
purple.
them glasses off, like
Yes.
I'm here, and then we screamed like
Literally. Because why not? That's what you're supposed to do.
I'm just like,
Kim, I'm so grateful to have you on this episode. Everything you said was just dripping
wow,
in knowledge and insight, truth, and comedy, which are the makings for just um, a, a great lesson, to be completely honest. And then it's important to me that I think as people build their networks and need to know more, as much as you're open to it, I'd love for you, if you want to share your social handle so people can follow you, and learn about the great things that you're doing.
yes,
And just get
yes.
to know you a little bit more personally.
Yes, you can find me at the Potato Farmer. I'm just kidding. You can find me. Can you
Someone's gonna
imagine?
look that up and be like, I don't
Somebody is.
care.
I'm sure it's out there. At the Potato Farmer is probably a potato farmer,
Right.
or like a French fry company or something. On Instagram, I am at 𝕂𝕚𝕚 𝕂𝕚𝕚 and I'm not really on Twitter. So
Yeah,
yeah, I was on Twitter and then I deleted it and then I created a new one and I am so not on Twitter. I don't even remember what the handle is.
that's fair. Because I don't
So
remember mine is.
yeah, I'm really just on Instagram. I'm not on, and then I'm on Facebook for no reason whatsoever. I'm on
That's a
Facebook
recurring
because I
thing.
was on Facebook when I was in college and I'm just still there. So
Absolutely. I love it.
that's it. It's not a good reason. It's just a reason.
Yeah, so definitely check out her Instagram account at Kimmy Got Soul. It will be in the description on all your listening platforms. Kim, thank you so much for being here. I love you. I appreciate you.
I love you too.
And just keep rocking out and standing firmly in who you are, because it's obviously where you need to be, because where you are is making you a star.
I'm excited about it.
Yay. Yes, of course. Of course. Thanks everyone for listening. Join us next time for another episode of Page for My Book. Take care, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.